Jesus, this movie, guys. Cue the intro. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to yet another brand new movie review on my channel, and as always, I thank you all so much for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy your stay. And welcome back to the Marvel Studios playlist. I am having such an amazing time talking about all 23 of these beautiful, beautiful films in this beautiful, beautiful saga. And this is all in the build-up to all of these big TV releases on Disney Plus, as well as Black Widow. And we're gonna kick off Phase 2 of the series, guys. First up, Iron Man 3. Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I'm assuming you've guessed by this point I don't think this is one of the strongest entries in this series. Oh, I'm so excited. But I promised I'd review all 23 for you guys, so let's begin. Tony Stark, once again played by Robert Downey Jr., is now more dependent than ever on the suits that gave him his Iron Man persona. So much so that every aspect of his life has been affected, including but not limited to his relationship with Pepper Potts, once again played by Gwyneth Paltrow. But after a malevolent enemy terrorist known as the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley, reduces his personal world to rubble, Tony must rely solely on instinct and ingenuity to avenge his losses and protect the people he loves. And just to give you fair warning before you trudge ahead in this review, this will be filled with mild to moderate spoilers, so just in case you've never seen Iron Man 3, tread lightly. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get down to business. I've already given several indicators from the top of this video that I really, really hate Iron Man 3. But you know what's even more maddening? I don't hate Iron Man 3. Let me make one thing perfectly clear from the get-go. There is a lot to really enjoy about this film. For starters, Robert Downey Jr. is just once again so damn good. I mean, seriously, you could put this version of Tony Stark in Blade Trinity or something like that, and just his presence in a shit show like that would up the quality by dozens. He is really, really great at showing even deeper parts of his emotional range here with the whole panic attack angle, all while delivering some of the coldest zingers a comic book hero could come up with. And all these returning actors are fantastic. Don Cheadle as Rhodey plays off of RDJ masterfully. Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts is once again stellar. Although she does feel a little more sidelined in this film compared to the other two, she does really well with her material. And we actually get to see Pepper Potts kicking some ass in some of these action sequences. That was incredibly refreshing even back when this first came out in 2013. And speaking of, guys, these action spectacles are just that. They're spectacular. The action in Iron Man 3 is definitely something that was improved upon from its predecessor, which is understandable why there's so much action in this one. I mean, for God's sakes, it's coming off of the fucking Avengers, for crying out loud. I also think this film is extremely well directed and extremely well shot. I should mention before I forget that this film was actually written and directed by Shane Black. If that name sounds familiar, this is a filmmaker I really, really respect, because he has come out with some of the most underrated films of the last 20 years. The Nice Guys? One of the funniest films of the last decade. Same guy. How about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? Also incredibly underrated, also starring Robert Downey Jr. in what was actually his big comeback role before he ever was Tony Stark. You get the picture. I love, love, love what Shane Black brings to the table as a screenwriter and just a filmmaker in general. He's great. He's got a brilliant eye for action. So many immaculate wide shots. The CG is seamless. And these action sequences are extremely unique compared to the other Iron Man films. I'm thinking of the Stark Mansion crumbling off the cliff at the end of the first act, and that pulsating climax too. I honestly forgot how much fun I had watching that in the theater the first time. Just as fun this time around, to put it simply. And I also gotta mention, while talking about Shane Black, this dialogue, man. Shane Black has got a real knack and a real ear for good comedy. Similar to a film like The Nice Guys, the wit in this film is razor sharp, icy cold dialogue and insults fired off at light speed. And I also love the idea he wrote in about the suits kind of having minds of their own. Shows you that technology is ever evolving. But even though I really respect Shane Black as a filmmaker, guys, I think as a story, Iron Man 3 is a cluster. man. This story is way too damn complicated. Way more so than it needs to be, for sure. Not only confusing, but there's also various storylines, including the one with that cool kid from Tennessee. You guys remember, Tony meets him while he's a fugitive over there. And even though this kid is pretty smart, and even though he does pop in every once in a while, like, it feels just like that. Like, he just pops in out of nowhere after Tony leaves Tennessee. And the kid's like, hey, I'm still in this world now. But for the most part, guys, that kid's arc is completely abandoned by the halfway mark. And even more damning, guys. Okay, so some of these character motivations. There is one action in this film that I think is the dumbest thing to ever come out of a superhero film. And one of the dumbest things a comic book hero has ever done. Tony's getting all these cryptic threats from the Mandarin. Tony says he isn't scared of the Mandarin. And you guys remember, what does he do? He gives him his home address. With absolutely no plan on what to do after he does that. What? And then what happens after he does that? His house, of course, is attacked and it crumbles off of the cliff. Even though it's a good spectacle and all, as a... I'm gonna use Tony's line on him. I have to. Not a good plan. Not a good plan at all, my friend. Now, while I'm on the subject of the Mandarin in this film, oh boy, do I have to talk about this? Yeah, I do, because everybody knows this controversy of Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. These air quotes will be very important later. To give the man credit where it's due, because the man is a freaking legend. Ben Kingsley can be very menacing when he's delivering those hacked video messages. The look of this guy, the piercing glare in his eyes, it's all really cool. And the whole idea of Ben Kingsley playing the Mandarin squaring off with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, on paper back in 2013, that sounded awesome. But then... the messiness of this story strikes again when, major spoiler, Ben Kingsley was not actually the Mandarin after all. Come again? Yeah, it's revealed later on in the film that he was a stage actor hired by the real villain to perform murder on live television to hold the President of the United States hostage. Oh yeah, and also to get at Tony Stark or whatever, but, you know, that's not important. Gee, I wonder how he could have gotten at Tony Stark so easily. Now, again, give the man credit. Ben Kingsley is trying his hardest to make this work. And again, to his credit, he plays the reversal really well. And for a person who doesn't read the comics, they might have gone into Iron Man 3 and they might have seen this twist happen and they might have thought, huh, that's pretty funny, actually. But for the big fans of the Mandarin that wanted this really cool, badass comic book movie villain, yeah, no, that doesn't happen here. If you want the Mandarin, you gotta wait until this July for that. Destin Daniel Cretton, please don't let me down, please. But you remember I said that the real villain convinces him to fill in this part, right? Well, let's discuss this real villain, shall we? So the real villain of Iron Man 3 is actually this evil businessman by the name of Killian, played by the amazing Guy Pearce. Seriously, I feel like Guy Pearce is the most underappreciated actor in Hollywood. You guys all know by this point, I reviewed Memento on the channel already. I think this guy is absolutely phenomenal. He doesn't get nearly the amount of credit he deserves as a performer. Not by a long shot. I love Guy Pearce. And similarly, he is doing his absolute damnedest to make this role work. And there are times where he'll appear very menacing, and he is great at delivering his dialogue as usual, and he brings a very charming presence to this part. But for God's sakes, this is the third Iron Man film up to this point, and we're still dealing with the evil businessmen? Like, we're still getting the evil suits in the film that comes out right after the film that was celebrating how much of a comic book movie it was? I mean, what the heck, man? Was it really that big of an issue to just make the Mandarin the main villain in this film, just to give us something different? I think at least if you did that, there would have been a bigger presence of fear, threat, and danger. Because with what they did, even watching this as a sophomore in high school, I was just sitting there like, yeah, there's no way they're gonna kill off Iron Man here. So freaking predictable, man. This whole villain's arc, man. It's one of the dumbest bait and switches ever. So... yeah, I think this is one of Marvel Studios' weakest films up to this point. Even though there are fun things in this film, Robert Downey Jr. is just that damn likable. And the action is overall improved upon from its predecessors with an especially fun climax. And I would say you could definitely feasibly stomach this one more than 2. But Iron Man 3 just steps on its own toes one too many times, and it's just f***ing messy. I'm gonna give Iron Man 3 a C. God, this movie was so frustrating. What's especially frustrating is that it could have been so much more cool and so much more badass than it was. It had so much potential to be this really cool spy espionage type thriller, like a Harrison Ford Jack Ryan movie, or even an Air Force One. I mean, you had the president as a character in this movie. But no. If you're looking for one of those movies, this ain't it. The good news is that Marvel would get the spy thriller genre down pat with another Phase 2 film that we'll talk about later. But I don't know, guys. Iron Man 3 just isn't my cup of tea. One last thing before we move on. Just because this is set during Christmas does not automatically make Iron Man 3 a Christmas movie. We're not gonna have this discussion. All joking aside, have you guys seen Iron Man 3? Do you enjoy it? Do you not? Do you agree with me? What is your least favorite Marvel film of all time? It doesn't even have to be in this studio, but anything with a Marvel label on it. I'd like to know, what is your least favorite Marvel film? I'd love to hear all of these thoughts and then some, all down in the comments. And if you guys are enjoying this content, and if you guys want a place to continue discussing cinema and all things entertainment with me, I think this channel may be the one for you. So if you guys are new here, or if you haven't already, please definitely consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. It is free. It really would help out the channel immensely, first off. And secondly, you subscribers, you beautiful people out there, will be the first ones to know anytime I upload a new video over here. And if you guys liked hearing me rant about Iron Man 3 for a little bit, please be sure to leave a thumbs up on your way out. I'd really appreciate that. And as per, look out for more exciting content hitting this channel very, very soon, including my next entry and my continuation in the Marvel series. Oh, Jesus. Thor: The Dark World. Thankfully, we're getting it out of the way early. But you guys are awesome. Thank you all so much for helping me vent out my frustrations with this film. And thank you all for your continued support of the channel up to this point. It really does mean the world. You guys are the best. With all that being said, back talk, commence.